Are you good? All right. I hereby call to order this regular meeting of the Morris Plains Board of Adjustment on November 26, 2023. All please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hereby announce that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meetings Act. Proper notice of meeting dates have been given to the Morris News Feed and Morris County Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and a quorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Karen, roll call, please.
Mr. Boza?
Here.
Mrs. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Ethan?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here. Here.
Mr. McCabe?
Here.
Mr. Webster?
Present.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Rizos?
Here.
And Mr. D'Angia?
Present. Thank you, Karen. Special announcements. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Welcome back. I hope the last of the leftovers was today in my house. Again, we have another month of a full agenda. There'll be no new testimony after about 10:30. We will be taking a short recess at some point during the meeting. And one clarification on an agenda item. The agenda for this evening's meeting list BA 423 is on for completeness. That completeness is for a soil disturbance permit and or amended land use permit. We did deem one part complete at last month's regular meeting. We'll cover this matter in detail later on this evening. The next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting. I know there's at least one correction to our meeting minutes of October 23rd, 2023, and that was the meeting minutes should reflect that we had a break, ran into a short recess from 9:17 to 9:27, and when we came back after the break, I stated for the record that Mr. Boza and Mr. Webster had been back in attendance after the recusal. Are there any other corrections to be made?
On page 152, the last paragraph, I think the sixth line says compliant, which is Ms. Giuliano starting on the line before filed an amended complaint, I believe that is.
Yes.
New prerogative grids. The sixth line down, the first word is, it says compliant, it should be complaint.
The last paragraph,
Okay. Complete in low?
complaint, you have compliant, it should be complaint.
Okay.
Any other corrections? If none, is there a motion to approve as corrected?
Motion.
Second. And voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Meeting minutes are approved as amended. This part of the meeting is to hear comments from members of the public on matters other than those items on tonight's agenda. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that part of the meeting. On to correspondence and bills. Do we have any?
Yes, I have one, purchase order number 202-32007 to Anderson and Densler, 383 Ridgedale Avenue, P.O. Box 343, East Hanover, New Jersey, 07936, for engineering services, professional engineering services rendered for the Board of Adjustment for the month of October 2023 in the amount of $46.28.
Does your reading constitute a motion to approve?
It does.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dan seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? The bills are paid. The first application on tonight's agenda is application BA 4-19, Denise Giuliano, Whispering Woods hearing, 49 Dogwood Road, rear, block 72, lot 12. Before we have any discussions on this application, are there any members of the board who must recuse themselves?
Yes, I'm recusing.
Okay, if you step down from the dais for the, just a moment or two while we go over the memorialization of the resolution.
So Karen, everybody else is eligible to vote, correct?
Correct.
The application was approved at the October meeting, and tonight we have a resolution memorializing the approval. Board of Adjustment Resolution number 23-09, describing pertinent application and testimony information, findings of the board, and conditions of approval has been prepared for the board's review. Does anybody have any questions on the resolution? If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
That's from Doug. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
From Lisa, thank you. Karen, roll call, please.
Okay. Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Eapen?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Rizos?
Yes.
And Mr. Cianciano?
Yes.
Okay, excuse me, Doug, were you the one who approved it? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Give just a moment for our recused members to come back in. Karen, let the record reflect that Mr. Boza and Mr. Webster are back. The next matter for this evening's meeting is application PA 423, Scott Fletcher, 10 Kosakowski Drive, block 8.01, lot 7. And ask Mr. Sullivan to help me out here. So we deemed complete the application minus the soil disturbance permit application last meeting. The attorney noticed, but then we received an amended application that included the soil disturbance permit.
Correct.
So are we,
We're reviewing for completeness just on the soil disturbance permit at this point. And I see the applicant's attorney is present. Just give us your appearance, please.
Yes, of course. Attorney Rosemary Stone Dougherty with the law firm of Jarrett Brown and Ward Gap here tonight on behalf of the applicant Scott Fletcher.
Okay, you received the November 21 letter from Joseph Norton regarding the soil moving permit?
Yes, I did.
All right, is there any problem with getting that information into the board before the next hearings?
Absolutely not, no. In fact, our engineer has had some discussions already just to get some guidance on the, some of the technicalities as far as what needs to be submitted on those remaining items. And we also got a copy of Mr. Hall's letter of November 21st as well. And we can comply with his comments as well. And we'll have all of that in well before the next hearing, which my understand is December 18th. And we were asking to be carried with no additional notice required, since we did notice for both soil and for the variance application.
okay, before we take action on that, Leon, any comments on completeness of the soils application? Or is it, does the will comply cover your concerns?
The will comply covers my concerns. I did discuss several of the comments in my report with the applicant's engineer this afternoon. Some of these requirements, the applicant may wish to apply for a waiver, since some of these things may not be applicable, but that's really the applicant's decision to make. But we did go over several comments. So that's it.
Okay. And Liz, any concerns, comments from you?
No, I didn't review this for completeness.
Got it. Okay, so because of the holidays, our December meeting is a week earlier than normal, so the latest we can receive information and have it considered is December 8th. So it's not a lot of time between now and then, we're a week shy. But understanding that you think you can get everything in, what we would do next month, I believe, is the completeness for the soil application permit. And if it's deemed completed at that meeting, we would be ready for testimony on the case.
Public hearing, yes, on the entire case.
Yes.
So would there be a motion from a member of the board to deem the soil permit application incomplete? And, and carry the case until the next regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment without need for additional notice?
Yeah, and that's December 8th, 2023, 7:30 p.m.
Sajid, I cut you off.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Karen, roll call of the correct number of board members, please. Is that 7?
Okay, Mr. Baza?
Yes.
Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mrs. Eapen? Mr. Eapen?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
And Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Eapen, I didn't get the second.
Webster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter on tonight's agenda is application BA 5-23, Anna and Joseph Gloria, 11 Trowbridge Road, block 72.01, lot 19. Karen, has the applicant paid appropriate fees and has proof of proper notice been verified?
Yes, everything is in order.
All right, given this, testimony regarding the application may be heard tonight. Is an attorney for the applicant or the applicant present? Come forward, sit at the table, and when you get seated, state your name and address for the record.
And I'm gonna swear you in first, so would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes.
State your name and address.
Anna Gloria, 11 Trowbridge Road.
And before we begin the hearing, I'll ask to have the board's professionals, including our traffic consultant, sworn in, and the swearing will carry the whole meeting.
Okay, with the three of you, raise your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth in the matters pending before the board tonight?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Ms. Gloria, tell us what witnesses will be providing testimony tonight?
No witnesses.
Just you.
Just you.
Just me, my husband as well if needed.
Okay. Tell us about your application, describe the variances you're requesting, and tell us why you think relief should be granted.
Sure. We are looking for a side yard setback, and we are looking for a combined side pole setback and a front setback. We're looking to have an addition put on our home. Currently, we have a garage that doesn't fit a vehicle, and currently we have 2 bedrooms and not enough room for our expanding family. Additionally, according to North Point Skyline, our zoning area, our lot is undersized as well. We have exhausted all other options in terms of how we can complete this addition, and this is the only way we can move forward.
Can you go into detail a little bit when you say you've exhausted all the options?
We can't go to the other side of the house, it's a hill, and we're too close to the neighbors, there's nothing we can do. We have space over the garage to build, but in order to build a garage that can fit a vehicle, even just a sedan, even though we have a smaller SUV, we would have to move our garage over 4 feet, and so that's where the variance comes into play for that. And then we're also looking to obviously put additional bedrooms and bathrooms in our home to again accommodate our family.
The survey that was submitted with the application shows a play set and a frame shed. They're still on the property?
So they're both still on the property in different locations.
When you worked with your architect, did you look at any solution that avoided the need for variance?
Yes.
And it didn't work out?
No.
Can you tell us why?
Because the only way, again, we can fit a car even into a garage is to move it over 4 feet. So that was, we also wanted to be able to park one of our cars into our garage. And in order to complete our addition, we wanted to add bedrooms above, and it could only be done on the left side of our house. And we're trying to keep as much as our existing home untouched as possible.
All right. Normally we have a little bit longer testimony, but I'm gonna ask Liz actually to maybe step in a bit, ask some planning questions that might be responded to.
Sure. Okay, so, did you have a setback, I guess, that's sufficient from your neighbor to the side, right? So, and you have, I believe, an existing fence?
Yes.
Sort of that is right up against the garage now, right?
No, the fence is not against the garage.
So it's
There's still a
behind the
good amount
garage.
of space. It's over to the, if you're looking at the garage to the left, we still have, there's a gate and another part of the fence. And even when we complete our addition, it won't even go to the end of the fence.
Okay, so do you think, you know, have you thought about what kind of impacts this addition might have on your neighbor?
Yeah, we're very close to our neighbors, so we've discussed it with them at length. And because our fence won't be touched at all, it won't be moved, there's really no impact that's going to happen to our neighbors. The gate is currently going to be over, but the existing fence will stay, and the addition will not even touch that fence. It's only 4 feet over, and there's quite a bit more space.
But the addition goes up, right? So it's
Yes.
like what is now currently 1 story will be 2.
2 stories on one side, and then we have just the garage. So where the garage is, it will meet our other part of our home.
Oh, okay, so I'm sorry, I was thinking that the garage was gonna
No,
be 2
it's
stories,
just one.
okay. And have you discussed with your neighbor, you know, putting any landscaping along the garage, I'm not along the garage, but or along the garage, I guess, because that's close to the lot line, but also, maybe behind the fence that would help shield, the new addition, or?
Yes, I mean, we've discussed our addition at length. Again, we're very close to our neighbors. We see them all the time for dinner. They're close with our daughter. So we have discussed the addition, asked them if I also discussed the landscaping once I read your letter from last time. And they're comfortable with whatever we decide to do. My husband does our landscaping and he does a great job. So I'm sure he will add landscaping to make it look appropriate.
So if I could, Liz, so why don't you tell us about the landscaping that's there now, the trees that are there now?
So, no landscaping will be altered. Currently on the side of our garage, we have our garbage cans. So and also a small little, container, outdoor storage container for my daughter's toys. And then there's a little wooden planter on the side that has a couple daffodils that bloom in the spring. So all that will stay, will actually make it nicer because there's some areas there that have poison ivy.
I guess what I was getting at is what exists between your neighbor's house and your house?
Nothing.
Large trees?
No.
So you're not taking down it, there's no?
No, there's nothing coming down, certainly not. Right now, our property, where our driveway is, which would stay, there's nothing preventing, there's no landscaping from, we have this little pot of grass in between our property, it's just grass.
Liz, back to you.
Okay, so I guess the question, and I think the chair was sort of getting at this earlier, so when you and your architect were looking at potential of how you could expand, and so you were saying that you wouldn't be able to expand to the right because, can you explain that again?
Sure, there's actually no space there, and our home already is 2 floors on that side, so
Okay.
there would be nothing we can even do on that side.
And did you look at expanding to the back?
We did look at expanding in the back, but we want to try to keep the home looking as part of the neighborhood and, making sure that it still fits in. And if we tried to do an addition on that side, we still wouldn't be able to have enough space and our home would be like an L and it would just be odd in the neighborhood.
Okay, so you're saying that because you're saying your lot is undersized
Yes.
for the zone, and so that I guess, is it correct to state that, because of the undersized, you're constrained by where you can go?
Exactly true.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
Leah?
Regards to the overall footprint of the addition, why couldn't that be slid back 2 feet to avoid the front yard setback relief?
That's the way he designed it.
Yeah, it was essentially our design to, again,
We didn't know we needed a front setback until after.
Okay, if you're
after
gonna
the fact.
testify, you have to come up and be sworn in.
You want me to sit over here?
That's, sure. Would you raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
Joseph Laurie, 11 Trowbridge Road.
So the question was, did you or could you move the home back 2 feet in order to comply with the front yard setback requirement? The requirement is 35 feet and what you're proposing is 33 feet. Leon, would that mess up the orientation of the home if by pushing it back, the addition versus the existing?
Well, if you look at the architectural elevations, there would have to be a change in the slope of the roof if the peaks were going to meet at the same location. So imagine taking the addition, just sliding it back 2 feet, but if you look at the elevations, especially the side elevations, there would have to be a revision to the slope of the roof. So again, from an architectural standpoint, is there any reason why the house could not be pushed back 2 feet?
For the front porch, to keep the house in line, to keep the lines together, the front of the garage met right where our front porch is gonna be. And that was, we wanted a functional front porch, so we wanted it of that size, and in order to keep that goes in line, that's where we decided to end the garage, the beginning of the garage. So by pushing that back, it will throw up the lines of the house. We wanna make this house look as normal and not some oddball looking, addition thrown onto a house.
Yeah, sometimes additions look very funky and chunky, and they don't add any aesthetic to the neighborhood. And so we want to keep our house with the aesthetic of our neighborhood, with adding the front porch and keeping our roof lines pretty even, so it doesn't necessarily look like we threw on an addition, and it won't look out of place in our neighborhood.
Cost-wise, for me, again, before I became a police officer, I was a union carpenter. To build a square, to put a foundation, to build a square, and just go up from there is gonna be the most cost-effective addition that we can do. Starting to subdivide it and go across the back of the house is only gonna cost us more money, which we don't have. So we're trying to keep everything, at cost. My wife's pregnant, we got a baby due in March, so we're trying to expand our house. We don't even have enough bedrooms as it is. We can't even host holidays because you have 4 or 5 people in my house and it just becomes a furnace. So, this addition's gonna allow us to have an oversized kitchen, a separate dining room, a main floor bathroom, full bathroom, which is what I desired, being that I come home from work with God knows what kind of things on me. I wanna jump right in the shower and not carry those into my house. We're gonna have a master suite with an additional bathroom on top, and then a 3rd bedroom for our upcoming child. So that's kind of why we went the direction that we went. After speaking with our architect, this is the design he came up with, which we were very comfortable with. We thought everything was good. It would fit well in our neighborhood. And
So expand on that if you would, because I've heard that twice. Why do you think this would fit well in the neighborhood?
Well, we
just because it's not gonna be some massive eyesore of a home, it's just, the home was, I believe it's considered a colonial. It's not a colonial I've ever seen, but the architect says it's a colonial, so we'll go with that. But it was a colonial with what used to be a screened-in porch that separates the garage from the main structure of the house. We don't even have a dining room. We have a galley-style kitchen that butts into a living room. That's our downstairs. The upstairs is literally a 3-foot hallway with 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and our bathroom right at the top of the stairs. There's no room in the house.
Yeah, but to address your question, if you look at the homes in our neighborhood, many of them are 2-story homes that all have pretty equal roof lines, and we wanted to stay with the aesthetic of the neighborhood and not make a home that would stick out as an addition or that would stick out in terms of weird angles and weird sides. So we do want to ensure that if you look at our home and look at the other houses surrounding our home, everything fits in the neighborhood and it just adds to the beauty of the neighborhood.
Is it common in your neighborhood to have attractive, well-done front porches?
It is.
It's a beautiful neighborhood. Like, we live on a hill, but to take advantage of that hill, we have a deck in the backyard. We always want a front porch. It gives us a little more, entertaining space, and again, it's just a nice, pleasing look to the home. Front porches just do a lot for us.
Essentially, we don't want to move, and so we want to do something to our home where we can continue to stay there and expand our family, and also add to the aesthetic of the neighborhood and keep within the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So this was the design that we worked on with our architect, and like my husband stated, we're very comfortable with this design, and we're not looking to make changes to this design. And again, we did explore other options, but because our lot is undersized, these were the best options that were available to us within our budget and also keeping the aesthetic of the neighborhood.
Leon, any additional engineering questions?
Yes. So what you're saying is the new porch, which is over 6 feet deep front to back, is driving the location of that plane of the front garage.
We wanted a front porch. We discussed with him the sizes of front porches. This is what he was comfortable with, and then he drew that plane to the front of the driveway. But it also, it's not only just giving us that nice even line on the front of the house. It also allows the garage to be deeper. There's no storage in my house. I have 0 storage in my house, so this allows me to have a slightly oversized garage, which will allow me to fit my truck. I drive a 2018 Toyota Tundra, it's a full-size truck. I want to be able to put that truck in the garage if I need to do something to it. I don't have that luxury now. So to have that oversized garage allows us to have a larger dining room, which is on the back of the house, and it also allows us to have the full bathroom on the main floor as opposed to just a powder room.
Okay, on the left side of the house, the lot where the addition is going, there's that tie retaining wall, correct?
Yeah, we discussed this at 2 meetings ago, and retaining wall is a stretch as it's only 2 railroad ties high, and it's used as a planter currently. And as my architect adjusted the plans, we'll just added a little note on the plans that it will not be touched. And as we discussed 2 meetings ago, if we do have to touch that retaining wall, it will be put back exactly the way it was, if not better.
It's falling apart as it is, but that's another project I'm just not getting into at this moment.
So if it's 2 ties high, it's roughly 12 feet, 12 inches, or a little bit less.
It goes from one railroad tie, because the back of the yard pitches down, to 3 railroad ties at the very, very end where it jogs in. This railroad tie curb didn't even expand the length of the home. So where the fence is in the backyard, where on the survey it shows where the playset was, there was nothing there. I put more railroad ties there just because I could see with the rainfall and stuff, that could be an issue. So I put more railroad ties to continue that wall through the end of our property.
So along the length of the addition, front to back, that tie wall is less than a foot high, is that correct?
Where the addition's gonna be? Yeah, 100%.
It is, okay.
They have one railroad tie that goes out in front of the fence that's doing nothing. I've told my wife 100 times I wanted to rip it out, put some arborvitae's there, but it just wasn't something that needed to be done at this time.
But you're comfortable putting it back the way it is now?
Absolutely.
If it's damaged
Not
during
better.
construction?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Questions from board members?
How long have you lived in Morris Plains?
6 years. 6 years, 7 years?
2017.
Just curious.
Yeah, this is our 7th year, in September is the 7th.
It wasn't an area that we were looking in, and when we saw the yard and the beautiful neighborhood, we just kind of fell in love with it. Plus, there's so many unique things to this town. There's a lot of amenities that are all within 1 square mile of here, so we have everything we need. Our daughter was born at Morristown Hospital. My son will be born at Morristown Hospital, so there's a lot to be desired about Morristown.
All right, so I'll state for the record that, as I typically do, I went out and visited the site before deeming it complete, and then was out there 4:30 to 5 o'clock today, walking the dogs for a final look before kind of plans in hand. I think the house in question looks to be kind of maybe the oldest and has those odd little windows up high. I think the architectural work that is proposed is well done. The front porch that runs across the whole length and kind of is bordered by the garage on the one side is consistent with other improvements that have been done over the years in the neighborhood, specifically around the corner. There's some really nice porches. I look closely at the side yard that encroaches, and I would actually prefer to see no plantings, because right now the yard between the neighboring house and this house just reads as open and a yard. And I think if you divvy it up would make this side seem smaller and this side seem smaller. So keeping it as is, as planned, makes sense to me. So I think there's been a demonstration of hardship with the undersized lot, which came with the house. All things considered, when you look at the planning criteria, Liz, that you talked about, I think that the benefits outweigh the detriments. It's consistent with other residential additions that this board has taken action on in the past. Anybody else? Your motion for anything? Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Before we ask for a vote, I open it up for members of the public to raise questions to these witnesses. So if you have statements, we'll wait for a moment. Any questions for the testimony of these witnesses? No. Okay, witnesses can step down. Does any member of the public have comments they want to make on this application? Thank you for the reminder.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth of the matter pending before the board?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address.
So Roman Gabriel, I'm at 8 Trowbridge Road. I've been a resident of Morris Plains for 14 years now. And just to sort of set context around the proximity of our property, so obviously the property in question is 11 Trowbridge. We're across the street, just adjacent, sort of corner to their property. Just additional in terms of where our property sits, we have, because I'll go through some of these properties, and really my intent here is not to oppose what they're doing, but just to put on record in the event that there's a similar application that would shorten the variance between the left and right side. So that's really the primary factor here. Our neighbor to, if you're facing our property, our neighbor to the right is 12, which is across the street, Trowbridge, across the street from 11. And then on the left-hand side is 91 Sylvan Drive. That's a corner property on Trowbridge and Sylvan. So just a couple of things about the residents. This is a great family. I've enjoyed having them in the community. I think they're been a great addition to Morris Plains. So again, my points here are really about getting on the record about any potential unintended consequences that could come up in the future in the event that someone came up with a proposal that was consistent with shortening the left and right-hand side of the property line. So just, I guess, a few things that I wanted to hit here. So in the application 24G, it has the data within 200 feet of all the properties. So that has 14 properties in scope, including 8 Trowbridge. So just something I wanted you guys all to consider is that when you look at what's being proposed, it's obviously the shortest of all of those on a left to right variance for the side yard. Currently, my property, 8 Trowbridge, when you look at it from the left-hand side, so again, adjacent is 91 Sylvan, there's 8 feet there. So that's the shortest currently. This obviously would be shorter than that. The distinction between my property and 91 Sylvan is that that's a backyard property and then ours is a side. So the privacy issues or closeness, the proximity of the properties really isn't a factor. The second one is between 12 Trowbridge and 16. These are just about 12 feet apart, but the distinction there is that there's a driveway that goes all the way to the backyard on 12 Trowbridge that goes to a garage that's in the backyard. So there's a much greater gap of separation between the properties. So I go through all this because I want to get to, so the punchline here is the next closest properties then impact both mine. And this is where there's no sort of special distinctions that come in mine. So when you look at my property, and this impacts 8 and 12, on the right-hand side there's 12 feet, and on the left-hand side, in my right hand it's 12 and in hers is 10. Our properties are very, very close. In fact, in the 14 years I've been here, I don't open my blinds because my master bedroom faces 12 Trowbridge. So it's a really, really close proximity, and I think likewise in our end, they just don't open it. It's not uncomfortably close, but it's enough to where we just don't open the blinds and look out that way. So the reason why I raise that is 12 and 10 on the surface sounds far away from what they're proposing, but just an incremental step from what that property is doing would have even more encroachment on privacy, and that's not something that I would want to see. I wouldn't want to see another applicant come in and say, hey, they gave me 7.5, I should have it as well. And I think just to round up the reason why that property in question comes under consideration is that there was a long-time resident there. That person deceased, and a younger couple came in very briefly. And it's a house that is really out of date. If you've gone by there, it hasn't been touched in like 30, 40 years. It's ripe for a rebuild. And so I don't know what the intentions are of the couple that were there. They've now since rented it. The reasons for renting it shared with us is that the house is too small. So again, the reason why I'm going on record is to make sure they see something like this, they're not going, oh wait, I see I can actually expand my house. And again, that would raise a concern on our part. Someone would use a precedent to do that. So sorry for the long sort of story sharing here, but I just wanted you to understand why I'm here. Again, I'm not here to oppose theirs. I just want to get things on the record in case an applicant came up trying to shorten the distance between my property and theirs. All right.
Appreciate it, thank you. Any other member of the public wish to make comments on the application? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion from a member of the board for action?
And just would be subject to our standard conditions, that an engineering inspection escrow be posted, payment of real estate taxes, compliance with ordinances, rules, and regulations, Prior to the issuance of a CO, the board secretary needs to certify in writing there are sufficient funds to cover all charges by the board's professionals, and the applicant's bound by all of their representations made during the course of the public hearing.
And the preservation of the tie retaining wall.
You want that as a condition? If they have to, when you say preservation, if they have to
Well, if
replace.
it's damaged, it has to be repaired. If it's destroyed, it has to be replaced to its current height.
Okay, that's an additional condition. And so that would be a motion, if there is a motion to approve, to grant the 3 variances requested subject to those conditions.
Motion.
I'll make a motion, yeah.
All right, so Mr. Clark first, I heard Mr. Webster second. Karen, roll call for the first 7 members, please.
Okay, Mr. Boza?
Yes.
Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Eben?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
And Mr. Schultz?
Yes. Okay, your application has been deemed complete. This action requires a resolution to memorialize our action, application for the record, and that memorialization will be on the agenda of the regular meeting, December 2023.
So, and it was approved.
Yeah.
So we could go forward with our architect?
So, we're gonna read the resolution, memorialize this next month, and then there's a 45-day period where somebody could object. So you're proceeding at your own risk. You can make a determination whether that's risk with a small R or capital R.
Who would object to this? Are we talking neighbors? Are we talking
It would have
board
to be-
members?
No, not board members can't, no. It would be an outside party.
I mean, nobody opposed the application here. My experience is it's extraordinarily unlikely that someone's gonna file an appeal, but it's theoretically possible.
Just because in order for me to start getting contractors in line, I need a full set of prints, and 45 days, now everything's getting pushed back further and further, and it's just making things gonna be more difficult once
Well, I know, but we can't do anything about that.
No, I understand that, it was more of a curiosity, like,
So I have to describe what's in the municipal land use law. You know, would I worry about it? That's your decision. Let's tell you what's in the law.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So you haven't ordered your building permit plans yet?
No, we just have that, just the print that you have, that's all we've done.
Well, chances are your architect's probably gonna take more than a month, right, to prepare those plans?
Or not.
Yeah, so the timing should be fine.
Any questions?
Just the railroad tie wall, again, I don't see it being disturbed, but if it were, can I build it better? Or do I have to build it back to the way it was?
Well, I don't know what the word better means, but if you wanna use a different material,
If I wanna put like nice stone or.
No problem.
Railroad ties, they rot over time. so-
Height is the issue.
Yep.
Height
No,
is
it
the
would
issue.
stay
The
the same.
engineer comes and this thing's 3 foot high all of a sudden.
No.
So that's why there was a very careful description
Sure.
of what the current height is. I know that's reflected on the plans. The material's not Leon's concern.
No, we would have to change the whole fence in order to raise that wall, so, no, it would stay the same, just different material.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next case.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. The next matter on tonight's agenda is BA 322, Interstate Outdoor Advertising LP, care of Cali Law LLC, 775 acres, block 115, lot 1.02. The application was deemed complete a few months ago, was properly noticed in the hearing recorded in the last regular meeting. The matter has been carried to this evening's meeting with no need for additional notice. I see Mr. Callier's returned, attorney for the applicant. If you would please reintroduce yourself for the record.
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Larry Calley on behalf of the applicant, Interstate Outdoor. Thank you for having us again tonight. Briefly, Mr. Chairman, members, before we begin, I'd like to just frame out what we hope to do here tonight. I realize we're sort of up against the clock again. We've got a number of witnesses to go through. First, we're going to have a brief recall of our civil engineer, Dogwood Road. He was sworn in and qualified at the last public hearing. We're going to have a limited recall on some lighting discussion issues, primarily that were raised by Leon, a few board members, and also in a supplemental report issued by Leon the other day. We hope to get to that relatively briefly. and move back to our operating witness, Jeffrey Gerber. Jeff is the COO of Interstate. He's also the President of Business Development for Interstate. We had a few open items that we did not go through during Mr. Gerber's direct testimony at the last meeting. It included interfacing between Interstate and DOT relative to the possible shift with the road widening down the road on the state highway, and whether or not that would impact our billboard. Mr. Gerber has spoken to the DOT contact to offer some testimony on that. We did not go through the rendering. We had a rendering proposed to show the board as an exhibit. We ran out of time, and that rendering shows the billboard from various vantage points on Route 10, same side and opposite side of the roadway at various distances, so the board can get a sense as to what that will look like in the field. We've also had the opportunity to advance to the board, sent it to Karen and Mike directly, the self-implemented proposed content control by the applicant. Mr. Gerber can testify as to what that would be, as to what type of content you would not see here, proactively initiated by the applicant themselves, of things that would be prohibited from advertising on this billboard. We've also submitted in advance to the board the similar sites around northern New Jersey that you might find. There was some in Rutherford, Woodridge, Ridgefield, similar heights, similar sizes of signs. We don't plan to go through those, but if the board had questions about the similarities or what might be distinctions between those and this billboard, we'll certainly go through those questions and answers, Mr. Chairman and members. And then we're going to start with the new witness deck. We'll hope to get to traffic engineering and then planning, and that will conclude our case, should time permit, this evening.
Sounds good. The floor is yours. Call your first witness.
Thank you. So I'll recall Tiago Duarte, our project engineer from Dynamic Engineering.
And as he's coming forward, I'll ask Mr. Sullivan, do we re-swear in?
Now, Mr. Duarte, you understand you were sworn in at the October 23, 2023 meeting, and you're still under oath?
Yes.
Just state your name and address for the record again, please.
Tiago Duarte, business address 50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey.
Tiago, you heard my proffer to the board as to the limited intent of your recall this evening for something to be testimony on lighting. You had some open inquiries raised by the board engineer and some board members at the last public hearing relative to lighting intensity at certain areas on the property. I'll turn it over to you, Tiago, to walk the board members through that at this time.
Yeah, so specifically at the last meeting, we agreed to provide a updated or revised lighting plan that depicted the light levels at the ground level, where our previous plan and or my previous testimony was talking to the light levels at the overall sign height or above grade, which is kind of atypical for a typical lighting design. So we did provide a revised lighting plan to the board. That is what I have up in the easel this evening, and that plan is revised with the date of November 13th, 2023, and it is entitled the lighting plan.
And that's identical, no changes whatsoever?
No changes, just been those correct. And just to walk the board through what this shows, basically we took the proposed sign faces and with the assistance of the manufacturer of the billboard, we have the lighting data associated with the typical operation of the billboard, and we model that in addition to the existing site lighting, so we have a full picture of what site lighting is today on sheet 1, and sheet 2 is the proposed conditions when the billboard is in operation. So in general, everything, call it from the building face to the rear of the site, does not change in any way. All the site lighting that exists today will remain unchanged. The key changes in the light levels are mainly focused along the right-of-way line on Route 10, and also there is some change along the Candlewood Drive property line and frontage as well. In general, I want to say it's not a wholesale change, so there's not 0 electrical candles today, and we're going to 100-foot candles. They're more subdued changes. So in general, the light levels will increase from the existing light levels by 1 foot candle or less. So along the frontage where the driveway is, so south of the building, we're going to go from, in general, 2.5 to 5 foot candles under existing condition, under proposed conditions, where under existing, it's about 4/10 of a foot candle less. So an increase of 0.4 foot candles under proposed conditions in this area. And then at the extreme side, so on the Candlewood Drive, the far end of the property, the changes there are really 2/10 of a foot candle. So currently 1.6 down to 0.5, and we're going up to 1.8 to 0.7. So not a huge change as far as light levels. And then also along the Route 10 right of way, there's about 8/10 and 7/10 of a foot candle increase, and that main change is in the front of the building area. So currently the 0.5, so half foot candle limit is on the parking area, and that's getting pushed out slightly to the curb line. And then out in the right of way, there's also some measurable changes, but mostly at the property line. The limit will change for the 160 foot section along the frontage, where currently it's 0, and it is going up to 0.5 at its maximum as we get closest to that billboard. That is a waiver from the lighting standards. As I just said, along the Candlewood Drive, it's a very minimal increase. Along Route 10, while it does get close to the 1 foot candle, it's a DOT road, and the DOT has approved design by issuing a permit for it. So they're, in my opinion, accepting of those changes with the light levels along the frontage. And then on the site itself, where there's currently less than 0.5 foot candles in the parking area, we're going to be increasing that. So some slight increase in safety by having a little more lighting in the parking area, I think is a good thing.
Let me just hold up a second. I had trouble following those numbers that
Sure.
were flying around, but Mr. Hall, you've indicated that a waiver is required or a design exception if the foot candles exceed 0.5 at the northerly or easterly property lines, correct?
Correct.
So let's start again. So Route 10, what's the existing foot candles and what is it increasing to?
At the property line.
At the property line.
Okay. So I'll mark on just on the exhibit here. So at the existing island, so call it this, at the corner where the driveway is, under existing conditions, that is 2.1 foot candles, and in the proposed condition, that is going to 2.5, so an increase of 0.4.
And is that the greatest foot candle along Candlewood Drive?
This is the driveway on Route 10, sorry. Driveway.
All I'm asking for is foot candles at the property line adjacent to Route 10.
Adjacent to Route 10, yes.
Okay, so you're telling me in that area, at the property line, it's existing 2.1 foot candles and it's increasing to 2.5 foot candles, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And is there any other area along the property line adjacent to Route 10 that exceeds the 2.5 foot candles in that area?
That exceeds the 2.5, yes. As you get closer to the sign, there's a 3.6.
Okay, at the property line, all right?
Along the property line,
Okay,
yes.
so what's, I guess.
So the greatest, 6.9.
Why don't we start with, what's the range of existing foot candles along the property line adjacent to Route 10, and what is that being increased to? We know in one area, it's 2.1 to 2.5. Well, tell me what else.
So for another, call it 60 feet along the frontage, again, still in that same driveway area, the maximum current level is 6.9.
Existing?
Existing.
At the property line?
Correct.
And what is that increasing or decreasing to?
It is increasing to, $7.5.
Okay, any other area where you wanna point out?
No, that's really the greatest change.
Okay, so let's go to Candlewood Drive.
Sure.
Same question, at the property line, tell me what's existing and what's if it's being increased to.
So existing, the greatest light level is 1.8.
And what is that increasing to?
It's 1.7 and it's going to 1.8.
And that's at the property line, correct?
Along the property line, Canada Drive.
And while we're talking numbers, These are the unit of measures foot candles?
Foot candles for lighting intensity.
And is the foot candles increase linearly or exponentially? So in other words, is 2 foot candles twice as bright as 1 foot candle, or is it more like decibels where it's 10 times, 1 unit apart is 10 times more?
It's linear.
Okay, so 2 foot candles is twice as bright as 1 foot candle.
Yes.
Back to your testimony, thank you.
Sure, so just with that, just to summarize, yeah, so the light levels in general, in my opinion, are not being increased in a negative way. So along, again, Candlewood Drive, it's a minimal increase. Again, that's furthest away from the proposed sign, so you can see how quickly the light levels diminish. Yep.
Given the fact that light candles are increasing minimally, it seems like, where are you getting, what's causing the clarity for a driver to see the sign where all of a sudden you're gonna have a huge sign and it's only increasing the foot candles by 0.4, it seems like at every border. I don't understand the science in terms of, what illumination is happening that's only impacting a foot candle by 0.4, but yet a driver that's approaching it from a mile away can see the sign. That's just something that seems puzzling to me.
So the traffic engineer will definitely talk about the visibility, but to answer that question, the light levels are changed just based on the fact that this is a lit sign, illuminated sign. It's not intended to illuminate an area or act like an area light. So that's why the light levels, they're not meant to illuminate an area, so the changes are minimal. But the intent is to be a directional output, so directly perpendicular to the sign face, and that's oriented to the roadway. So that's really where the visibility and focus are intended to be, not at the ground level along the site. And just to answer Mr. Hall's question regarding our number 2 of the November 22nd memo regarding the field verification of our existing plan. We were on site, used a light meter, an X-Tech LT300 model. So we took ground level measurements, compared it to the existing plan that we had, and our light levels were pretty much in line, for the most part, spot on with that existing lighting plan.
So the lighting meter corresponded well to the previously approved lighting plan?
Correct. Yes.
Good to know.
I have a question. So these numbers are measured at ground level.
Correct.
I know this light is not on a beam, but if it were on a beam, as you went up closer to the sign, those numbers would increase.
Correct. Yes.
Now, with no sign there, I mean, how can we compare that area of brightness with no sign, say halfway between the ground and the sign? What it is today compared to what it would be? I mean, is it lighting up? I know you said that the light is on the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's not projecting. Is it projecting halfway and we're just not seeing it in these numbers?
Yes, there's of that. So again, the sign being at 49 feet overall height, the biggest measurable light levels would be at that half of the sign base.
How does that compare to what's there now? Those light levels in that area, say halfway between the ground and the sign, say around 25 feet on a 45-degree angle from the ground to the sign, roughly. I'm trying to grasp how this thing illuminates the area. I can see the ground, that's the farthest part away.
Sure, so in looking at the existing lights that are there, you have areas that are 10, 11 foot candles. So if there were no site lights on site and you just had the billboard, it would appear obviously very bright, but with light levels but with lighting currently existing there, it blends in, so it doesn't stand out as much because there is bright lighting beneath it with the site lighting.
Is the ratio between the increase because of the sign the same
halfway between the sign and the ground as it is on the ground? Was just minimal on the ground? Is it minimal, even though it might be a higher number, is it minimal change?
I'm not following.
I don't know if I'm asking the right question. I'm trying to get a vision of, so there's light in the area, I
Sure.
understand that. And now you're gonna put the sign up, and that's gonna increase the light in the area.
Correct.
Does it increase at the same ratio as it has down at the bottom?
So your question is, if you go halfway between the sign and the ground, is the lighting level twice as strong as ground level to that midway point?
Correct.
Is the
Basically.
core we getting?
Not twice as strong, but yes, it is stronger as you get higher, until you're at the center of the sign face. That's the highest measurable light level area. And again, that's due to the directionalized nature of the LEDs.
But because there's existing light there, we're not gonna notice as big a impact in that area. Whereas if that was a dark area, we'd say, wow, look at how lit up around this sign it is.
Yes, and a good example of that, I've done other applications that cast over a gas station site, and when we did our light level studies there, the gas station, obviously they're very bright because they have canopies and lighting under that, doesn't alter any of the, in that case situation anyway, didn't alter any of the light levels on site. So the existing site, gas station in this case, was brighter and not impacted at all by a digital billboard.
If it helps, the operator is going to be up next again, and he can explain the relationship between the ambient lighting levels outside and the lighting of the billboard. It's duller, just like your car gauge cluster. It gets brighter when it needs to get brighter in the daytime. It gets dimmer at night when there's no other ambient light because you can still see it. The billboard reacts to ambient lighting as well. So, and Mr. Gerber can explain that further.
That's really all I have on direct.
Thanks, Leon.
Leon or Liz, any additional questions for this witness? It's limited testimony.
I have a question. When you modeled the billboard lighting, did you use the billboard that's shown on this application, or did you use the billboard that's in the DOT permit?
This application.
This application?
Yes, the smaller, not the permit size, yes.
That's it.
Liz?
Not right now, thank you.
Any other questions from board members for this witness?
Maybe more for Leon. Are there any dark sky rules in Morse Plains?
No.
No? There's
No.
no like downward light? Okay.
None. Probably should be, but
Yeah.
there are none.
That's what I'm wondering. That's it. That's all I have.
Any member of the public have questions for this witness? Question. Please state your name and address for the record.
Bill Houston, 80 Glenbrook Road. Thank you for laying that out. If I could just understand in layman's terms, right? So it's essentially like a giant TV that you're hanging up, and the equivalent between the light levels is similar to looking at a TV in a brightly lit room versus looking at a TV when the lights are off, correct?
Correct.
So the difference that Mr. Carr was asking about, the light levels, right? It's the room is on with those initial light levels, and then all you're doing is adding to that light with the addition of the sign. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so then this sign, giant TV, right? We'll call it just layman's terms, right? It's only pointing towards Route 10, right? It's not. I mean, there's some ambient light that's going to impact the rest of what's going on, but in other words, there's a Tandlewood Suites is behind there. It's not going to impact the people that are behind there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It'll cut off.
Great. Thank you.
Any members of the public have questions for this witness? Seeing none, the witness can step down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. So next, Mr. Chairman, a recall of our operations witness, Mr. Jeffrey Gerber, who is the CEO of Interstate and the President of Business Development for Interstate.
Mr. Gerber, you were sworn in at the last hearing. You understand you're still on the road?
Yes, sir.
State your name and address, please.
Jeffrey Gerber, 905 North Kings Highway, Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
So you heard during my introduction the few items that we hope to go through during your recall. Maybe we can start with the shortest one first, which is our intent to limit the right of copy content on this billboard. And what we advanced to the board was a statement, a brief statement, and I just want you to confirm this remains accurate for this evening. The applicant advised and agreed that the digital displays will not advertise tobacco, cannabis products, or gentlemen's clubs. All advertising will be, quote, G-rated in nature. Is that in fact still the offer of Interstate as a self-imposed condition on any approval?
Yes.
Okay. We're good there.
Let me just, I just want to make sure I caught those. No tobacco, no cannabis, no gentlemen's clubs, G-rated, anything else? Did I get it all?
You got it all, Mike. So, next and briefly, we had a discussion at the last meeting about your ability to speak with DOT about their potential intent and timing to widen this area of Route 10 and its impact it might have upon our billboard. Would you briefly provide the board with an update on that as well, Jeff?
Sure. We got a contact from Mr. Hall, Edward D'Arcy, and I had a number of conversations with him. I also sent him our site plan. And I expressed to him a concern that Mr. Hall had mentioned, that the sign being there would have any negative impact on DOT's decision to go forward with the widening of Route 10 as an obstacle, if you will. And I told Mr. D'Arcy that we had committed to moving the sign back 6 feet at the time of a widening, back behind the reservation line, if you will. And Mr. D'Arcy then sent me back a plan, our plan, that they marked up. I can share this with the board, with the engineer.
And we'll mark this, Jeff. I just want to see where we...
I think we're at A1, I don't think we marked anything.
I don't think we did either, Mike, yeah. Okay, so we'll mark this A1 with today's date. This is a marked up plan that was marked up by this DOT representative.
So you'll see that this plan is basically a blow of our site plan. All the color markings on there are all done.
If you would, put one copy on the table there, if any members of the public want to come up and examine it, make sure the board secretary gets a copy if she doesn't have one, please. Thank you.
I didn't get a letter from him. I got an email with this plan. So what he did was, or someone in his office did, was show where the new proposed right-of-way line would be, which would be approximately a couple feet to the north of the land reservation line as it's currently proposed. So we would have to move our sign face 4 feet back to be outside of the state right-of-way. However, and this is still not clear, it's not exact according to Mr. D'Arcy, they're going to move the utilities right along that new right-of-way line. So our sign would have to be 10 feet behind that utility, those electric lines. That's the spacing that we'd have to be. So if that were to happen, instead of our sign having to be moved back 6 feet, we'd have to move it back another 8 feet to accommodate the 10-foot setback from the relocated power lines.
So you'd have to move it back 14 feet?
If this is the plan that they ultimately go forward with, yes, which we are agreeable to doing. We didn't understand that the power lines were going to be put all the way back to the right-of-way line, and it still may not be the case. Mr. D'Arcy said he didn't care, it was between us and the power company where our sign was, but I told him that it's 10 feet and we would follow that requirement. His concern is just that our sign faces would be outside of their right-of-way line. So we would be committed to if it has to be 14 feet back, we will do that. Wherever we have to maintain proper spacing from the power lines, we are committed to do that as a condition of our approval. Would ask one thing of the board, if we have to go back more than 6 feet, if we have to go back 14 feet, if and when that happens, if we would be given the ability to increase the overall height of the sign by 3 feet, if possible, if that happens. And the reason is because and you'll see it in the renderings that I'll go through, although I don't have renderings to show the sign 14 feet back, but I didn't get this information in time. I got this right before the Thanksgiving holiday. That would be our request.
So if the DOT ultimately implements this and we have to slide our sign back, top height,
More than the 6 feet that we had originally thought.
top height will go from 49 to 52 is the request.
Is the request.
Why would that have to be?
Because as you move that sign further back and as you're traveling eastbound on 10, the building starts to clip the sign. At 6 feet, it just sits right above the building. You go back another 10 feet, you're clipping the back of the sign. And so that's the basis for the request. And when I get into the renderings, you'll see that. I don't have a rendering at 14 feet, but you'll just be able to extrapolate from what we have that that's the case.
Would you use the existing structure?
Yes, everything would be the same. Nothing would change.
So you could elevate it 3 feet without changing?
We can slot. We're going to design the sign to be able to be the foundation and the pole to handle what would be called a full flag or partial flag. So that all we'd have to do is to have like a spacer to raise it a couple of feet if we had to.
Okay, so when you approached Mr. Darcy, you started your testimony out, would this sign be an obstacle?
Yes.
It sounds like the answer to that question was yes, it would be an obstacle.
It's not an obstacle to them going forward with the project. And I told them that we would, at our expense, move the sign back. This would not be a DOT expense. This would not be obviously a Morris Plains expense. He was satisfied that if we are agreeing, if that's a condition of the approval, what he could not commit to is how far the sign would go back because the plans aren't finalized yet. And he said he can't give an approval of this. He was simply indicating to me that if we're agreeing to move the sign back and it's not going to involve a DOT condemnation action, there is no obstacle to what they're proposing to do as long as we're outside of the right of way.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. The first relocation was 6 feet, was that correct?
That relocation was based upon the land reservation distance that we were given by the township, and so we just tried to accommodate that and keep our sign out of the state right of way. What changes this analysis is the fact that the DOT may, and I emphasize may, run their relocated utility lines along the, I guess you'd call it the southern boundary of their right of way line.
Okay, let's go back to that very first issue, the 6 foot move.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling you that this billboard has to be outside that initial 10 foot wide additional right of way, is that correct?
Correct, which under this plan only is about 4 feet, not 6, because they're not taking the right of way line all the way to the land reservation line, which is another 2 feet or 12 feet.
Right. So, but he hasn't committed with total certainty that he only needs the 10 foot right of way and not the 12 foot right of way, is that correct?
It wasn't in our discussion, it wasn't a question of whether they needed to push the right of way back any further. It was a question of where they were going to put the relocated utilities.
So again, is he established the right of way, proposed right of way, with certainty? Yes or no?
No.
No, okay.
No, because this right of way line could be less. I don't think it's going to be more than the 12 feet. I didn't indicate that. I said that the real issue for them seems to me, this is still in the planning stage, and he emphasized that, is that where the utilities are going to actually be. And I said whatever they are, we would agree. We would agree as conditions 2 things. Whatever ultimately comes to, if and when it happens, that we would be outside of the DOT right of way, and that we also would maintain that 10 foot spacing from the relocated utilities, whatever they ultimately are relocated to, as a condition of our approval.
So that 10 foot spacing between the relocated utilities and your message board, that's the overhead wires to your board, correct?
No, it's the spacing of our structure from the electric lines running along Route 10.
Okay, I think that's what I asked you.
Yeah,
Right? I'll say it again.
Oh.
The relocated utility poles and the resultant relocated overhead lines, the DOT is telling you you need to be 10 feet back from that, correct?
Actually, well, they didn't say that. Frankly, Ed said to me, he said, listen, you know, once you're out of our right of way, that's all we care about. I said, well, we know we have to be 10 feet from power line. He says, I don't get involved.
That's Jersey Central Power and Light, correct?
Well, I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty much standard across the state with power lines similar to this. And so I just told them, I know that we would do the 10 feet because we have to. And I said, we'll move it back as far as we need to, depending upon what the ultimate right-of-way line is, and we're committed to doing that.
Well, it sounds like what's really driving the ultimate placement of this message board is going to be the utilities, correct?
In the future, yes. If and when this widening happens, yes.
Now, if the state, for some reason, decided, no, we're going to take the full 12-foot wide right-of-way, just as it relates to the right-of-way alone, how far back would you have to push this?
We have to go back 10 feet from that 12-foot line. I'm sorry. Clarification.
Forget the utilities.
Yeah.
As it relates to the right-of-way only, if the state took the entire 12-foot right-of-way, how far back would your message board have to push back?
6 feet right now, assuming that we're 10 feet away from wherever the relocated utilities are.
Okay. Forget the utilities. From a right-of-way perspective only.
If they go back 12 feet, they go back to what was land reservation line, then it's 6 feet.
Okay. Now, since Jersey Central Power Light appears to me is going to be driving this whole issue, have you reached out to them yet?
I haven't. I know that it's a 10-foot distance, and so I don't know what to talk to them about until we know where that ultimate relocated power lines are going to be. And it's proposed. It's not final.
Right.
But I'm saying, and I understand it's a potentially fluid situation now, and we'll be fluid with it. Make sure we stay out of the right of way and stay 10 feet away from those power lines, no matter wherever it ends up.
So Mr. Darcy told you, once your message board's outside the right-of-way, the issue of separation with utilities is between you and the power company, correct?
Yes, he said that DOT's not going to enforce that. We have to, that's our responsibility. But we know what that is, and we would add that as a condition to the approval here, that we have to comply with whatever the power company requires us to do, which we know here is 10 feet from the power lines.
And this structure, the post, the sign's 48 feet wide. You could actually make this a flag sign, right?
Well,
And move it 24 feet?
We can slide the V back, if you will.
How far can you slide it back?
To slide it back, what we would do is when we build the sign, we would design it to be able to handle that now, even though it's not. So it's going to be over-designed structure and an over-designed foundation.
Other than the height that you have to clear if you had to move it to 24.
Including that as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
You spoke to the DOT contact person by telephone, is that what you indicated?
Yes.
And were there emails that went back and forth?
There was an
or
email that he...
Or correspondence?
Yeah, I spoke to him late on Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I got an email back from him on Wednesday.
And it was just one single email?
We spoke. I think he asked me to send him the plan. I sent him the plan, and then I got the email back. Then I got the phone call back on Tuesday, and I got the email from him with this marked the plan on Wednesday.
Okay, I appreciate that you provided us with this.
I can provide emails too, of course.
Yeah, I think we want to see those.
Absolutely. I can have those submitted tomorrow. Both the email of me transmitting our site plan to Mr. Orsi, and then his sending this back. That's
Any
it.
other emails between
No,
the two of you?
that's it. And 2 phone calls.
But look at this plan. I'm a little confused. Right by your message board in red, there's a 10-foot dimension called out, and it appears to be going from the proposed curb line to the existing 12-foot land preservation line. Am I reading that map correctly?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a mistake of the arrow or not. I assumed that was meant to do the measurement of the 10-foot setback. But it looks like the tip of that arrow may be off. since they're not moving all the way back to the land reservation line.
Because the only thing we do know is from the existing front property line, that land reservation is 12 feet wide, which is noted in black over on the right side of the drawing. There it is. He's got a call out. This is where his red line doesn't agree with his call out. There's a call out in a yellow box, red letter. He says proposed right-of-way line, and he's pointing to the 12-foot land preservation line. And he's not pointing to the bold line in red.
It very well may be, and it's, I grant you it's ambiguous, it very well may be here, and I was speculating, but that the 12-foot is gonna be the land reservation. They are gonna make that the right of way, and the red line maybe is the proposed relocated utility. I think it does say here proposed right of way line. It very well may be the case, but in either situation, or we're talking about a 2-foot difference, we have to be 10 feet back from that right-of-way line that contain, or that relocated utility line, which we would do, and we have to be outside of the state right-of-way.
So Leon, what I see is, I see the call out, proposed right-of-way line, in my mind accurately points to that, and you look at the call out above that, relocated utility poles and overhead wires, that's the red line.
Yeah, that's the bold red line running along.
Yeah.
So that's, and again, that's not set.
Correct.
Right.
And he said that it's not finalized yet. He didn't expect there to be any major changes here, but there could be a couple of feet one way or the other, I think is how he described it.
Did he tell you that it was his intent, or it's DOT rule, policy, or regulation, that the relocated utility lines and poles have to be within the DOT right away?
We didn't discuss that. That would make sense, but we didn't discuss that.
If I'm reading that right, doesn't that mean you just picked up 2 feet?
Potentially.
Right. I mean, it's all.
And it's all fluid still, but
Right.
yes, that's correct. But no matter what it is, again, we will make sure that we are outside of the right of way, and we will be 10 feet from the power
I was
lines.
just wondering if by saving the 2 feet, again, if this was right, does that keep us at the 49 feet?
If it's just, if we have to only have to move the sign back, let's say 8 feet,
Right.
I think once we get above that, I think we're starting to have, we're
Yeah,
definitely.
that's why it was close.
That's correct. We would wanna have to raise the sign if we don't have to, it's more expense to us.
All right, let me ask for absolute clarity. Before you said if the sign were moved 6 or more feet, you'd be asking for 3 foot of additional height. And
Right.
you just said 8, so I'm
Yep.
looking for clarity for the record.
8 feet, I'll make it 8 feet, based upon those 2 feet.
You had any additional questions on 2A1?
Why don't you go on to the board members, and Liz, maybe I'll come back.
And Mr. Bolts as well. Yeah, Harold, you have questions?
Yeah,
on
just
2A1?
a quick question. There's a permit that was issued, permit number 77260 for this.
Yes.
And it says on the bottom left of the permit that it's a 15-foot by 10-foot back-to-back multi-message sign. Today in the package that we had, there's an extension, a letter from the DOT which says the permit was extended to May 15th, 2024. The fact that the sign is 14 feet by 48 is different from what's in the original permit. Do you have to apply for another permit?
Yeah, that's standard, just so everyone understands, that's standard process for us and for most outdoor companies, because the difference in cost for a 14 by 48 permit versus say a 300 square foot permit, it's $565 a year for a 14 by 48 versus $70 for a 300 square foot permit. So sometimes we wait years to get through a process or whatever, so we typically don't apply for the 14 by 48. We have hundreds of unbuilt permits. And so we keep it at the 300 or so square foot level to save, $535 a year until we get approved. But it's, again, as with what we just talked about with respect to moving the sign back, Obviously, a condition of our approval is that we would secure from the New Jersey Department of Transportation a state permit for 672 square feet per side of sign for the digital sign as a condition of our approval. Because we would never build this, we would never build a 672 square foot sign without having a state permit.
You couldn't.
Well, you could do it, you'd have, DOT would come after you and you'd get your license pulled and everything else, so beyond the permit. So you could do it, but you'd be foolish to do it.
And the standard practice is, as you indicated, when you have numerous permits out there, it's more cost effective to apply for a permit at a lower square footage, and then you convert it thereafter.
That's correct. It saves us thousands of dollars a year to do that.
So you put in for a revised permit?
We submit a new application for that same location, and all we do is change the size, and DOT approves it. It's a pretty standard practice, because we're not changing anything else. We're not changing the location. It's the exact same location, it's just a change of the size, sign face.
And just by way of example, this practice is consistent with that deck that we submitted to the board of similar sites in New Jersey that have been built.
Yes.
I imagine those permits early on were for
Yes, smaller
numerically
size,
smaller.
and then it's again, you're saving yourselves $535 a year in application fees per site.
Are the permitting requirements consistent between traditional signs and illuminated
Yes,
signs?
they're identical, actually, in terms of spacing and everything.
I do have another question. Let's say, to me, this is probably the worst case scenario. If those overhead utility lines and the poles were placed right on the 12-foot land reservation line, how far back would your sign have to be in order to clear that 10-foot separation?
If it's on that 12. Right now, we are 6 feet past the land reservation line.
Right.
So if they were right on it, we'd have to be 6 plus 10 would be 16 feet. Move back 6 plus another 10.
So in theory, that might be the worst case scenario here.
Right. I believe that is the worst case scenario.
What would your sign look like if it had to be moved back 12 feet? Or, I mean, I'm sorry, 16 feet.
16 feet. It would look pretty much how it's going to look when I show you the renderings, except for the one that's 6 feet back. It's another 10 feet back. It's the only issue is going to be is again traveling eastbound on 10. The back of the sign is going to get clipped by the building if we can't raise it a few feet. That's it. Nothing else really changes. It's not going to impact anything else. But we can go through the renderings and discuss them.
Liz, questions?
If you have to raise it 3 feet, does the pole get higher?
Well, the pole would stay the same. We would add a spacing on top of it and then add the sign structure on top of it. So you take the head off and raise it 3 feet. And it would be designed to accommodate that.
So just so I understand, so if it's 32 feet now, it would be 32 feet then? Or no?
I mean, no, because you're going to have it's going to be a pole now with a 3-foot extension. So I guess it depends how you want to describe it. 35 feet with the 17, which would get you to the 52.
Okay, so the pole would have
It'd
to
be
get
extended 3
higher.
feet.
It would have to get 3 feet
But
higher.
it'd be the exact same pole, it'd be the exact same valve. Everything would be designed to accommodate this so that there's no new construction as a result of this. It's simply adding this 3-foot spacer if and when this were to happen.
Okay. All right, but I guess the amount of pole that would be seen would increase.
By 3 feet.
By 3 feet.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And Jeff, we know we can comply if and when this happens, but we don't know if or when, but your experience previously working at the state and in your discussions with Mr. DRC, what would be your estimate? And granted, it's only a guess, what would be your estimate for implementation of a project like this if it did come to pass?
I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't think there's funding yet in place for this project. From what I understand, they're going to have to get the funding in place. There's going to be, if they're going to go back 10 feet or 12 feet, there's going to be a lot of condemnation work that's going to need to be done. My guess is you're looking at a decade, but who knows if it gets fast tracked? I don't know. It depends on what
I think it's safe to say we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a guess.
Unfortunately, that's probably like I guess what I'm struggling here is, I don't wanna talk about utilities at all. I just wanna talk about right of way. Mr. Darcy indicated that this message board has to be outside the right of way. Is that correct?
That's not only does he say that, that's per NJDOT outdoor advertising.
Okay.
They would pull our permit if our sign was in the right of way.
So, my recommendation is that this application gets amended in terms of what's on the plans now, that board is at or behind that 12-foot land reservation line. Because we know you have to move it back to that point no matter what, is that correct?
We know we have to move back to that point if and when this widening takes
Right.
place. And why push it back and why raise it an additional 3 feet if you don't have to? So that's kind of where I come down on it. I'm trying to keep the sign as low as possible. Why do that for something that may not happen? You know, I know it's important to the town. If it does, we're willing to work with DOT and make sure that we stay out of the way. It doesn't cost DOT anything, it doesn't cost the town anything, and we'll cooperate. And we're committed to that as a condition of our approval.
I guess if and when you go back and apply for the larger sign, that assumes there's some type of board approval here. I guess at that point in time, would it be appropriate for you to bring to the attention the DOT permitting section, the sign, and you will acknowledge up front as part of your permit application that you will agree, if and when Route 10 is widened, to relocate that sign outside any DOT.
Absolutely, we committed to it.
But you'll put that in your permit application.
We will put that as there's a section in the permit for notes. We'll put that in our application. We'll share it with you, Mr. Hall, whoever, before we apply as part of our condition of approval. 100% will do that.
Good for now.
Questions from board members for this witness? So I'll open one. From an operations perspective, why here? What makes this site so desirable from your perspective?
You have a major transportation corridor along in Morris County, and it's a good location. It's a commercial property. It's a property that's first there's a couple. I think I went back through this the last time. When we look at a location, we first look for an area that's along a major transportation corridor. That's Route 10. It also has to meet DOT requirements, otherwise there's no sense in going forward. So it can't be in a residential area, it has to be in a commercial or industrial zone. And then the next criteria really is a practical one, it can't impact a residential zone. People should not have a sign shining in their bedroom or in their living room or what have you. And this location checks all of those boxes. This sign is not going to impact a single residence. It's along a commercial corridor it's a major transportation corridor. It's very busy. It's a great location for an outdoor advertising sign. And there are not as many locations that sometimes some don't work because of the nature of the property. Some property owners have development plans that aren't going to be consistent with having a sign on their property. And so there aren't as many locations as you would think that wind up being candidates that check the boxes for it to be a suitable location. I'll just give you an example. We worked, I think I mentioned this the last time, we were involved in one of the largest municipal sign projects in the country in Chicago. We're involved in building over 60 digital sign structures in the city of Chicago on major interstates as well as local streets within the city. And they gave us 18,000 properties that the city owned. 18,000. By the time we had to narrow down all the zoning issues I just mentioned, and in this case along interstate highways, there's spacing from ramps, spacing from other signs, from other permits, all kinds of operational issues. It got down to barely the 60 locations. I mean, we struggled to get to 60, and the city wanted that for their revenue. That's after looking at 18,000 properties. So it's not it's not as many properties as you think that are available candidates to accommodate an outdoor advertising sign for a whole variety of reasons.
And then, I did look at the package you sent with the,
Yes.
a variety of signs throughout, attached to an email from Larry Calley to Karen Coffey on October 26, 2023, and really helpful. So my question on this, and many of these I've seen firsthand in travels. So it looks to me that none of these are comparable in terms of proximity to a curb, right? So what I mean by that is, if I'm driving down the highway, my vantage point is there, right? I kind of drive by there. This one on Route 10 seems to me, if I'm headed east, right, it is so close, right? I mean, it is in fact, or are in fact these examples more pulled back away from the shoulder or the curb of the highway than this?
I would look at the second sheet, sign 357C on Route 130 in Pennsauken. That's very close to the curb, 130 there. It's a 3-lane road. There's an intersection there. That's quite close. I don't have the exact distance, but it's fairly close to the curb. The one in Little Falls, the next one, 453D on Route 46, it's set back a bit more. It's not like the one on 130. The one on Route 46, that's a flag away from the sign. That pole is pretty close to the curb. It's hard to see in this picture what it is. The sign that's on next one, 466A, that's in Sayreville. That's in a parking lot of a truck.
10 feet away.
10 feet away from the curb in that situation. And by the way, we just built another sign on Route 35 in Sayreville that I think is also about 10 or 15 feet from the curb. So it's not that unusual at all. Some of these locations, I was trying to pick digitals that were somewhat close, not all of them obviously. Even the one, by the way, the third one in this list, it's the one on Route 3 near the Meadowlands Plaza. Route 3 is the main road, but there also is a service road to the right there of the main of Route 3, and that's right on. That's about 10 feet off the curb there too. Not an unusual situation at all.
Mr. Kelly, I'm going to suggest that we mark that October 26, 2023 email with these photos as Exhibit A2.
Very good.
Question members from other questions from other board members for this witness?
Just, I'm curious as to why you would consider just moving the sign back in your request for a permit just to avoid all these questions with DOT and Jersey Central Power and Light, and not have to build a foundation to accommodate movement in the sign. It sounds like it might be more cost effective that way and avoid a lot of the questions you're getting today relative to DOT.
If we move the sign back that distance, then we would need to be able to raise the sign. Height, I know, is always something that is of concern to zoning boards, and we were trying to keep the sign as low as possible. That was really the reason. 10 feet back or 12 feet back isn't going to make that big of a difference if we can raise the height of the sign. I was just trying to, based upon my experience of being in front of hundreds of zoning boards, we've always been encouraged to keep the sign as low as possible. We thought, given this is something that may or may not happen in the future, that it made sense, and we were willing to pay that expense if in the future it changed. That's the reason why.
Chair, I have a follow-up. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned about impacts to residential uses or zones. What criteria do you use to evaluate that impact? Distance or?
Excuse me?
Distance, density, what do you use to?
It can't just be distance, because you could be near a residential zone, you could have a huge buffer, whether it be a building or evergreen trees or topography. It's really just practically, is someone going to see this sign in their house or on their, is it gonna shine on that on their house? Is it gonna impact their quality of life? That kind of thing. And so anytime we see a situation where there are homes right across the street of a proposed sign or right next door, like that's not a good location for a sign for obvious reasons. So there's no, I mean, Mr. Hall, it's not like there's a scientific, it's really a practical approach because we don't wanna have a proposal and have an application, spend all this money, tens of thousands of dollars to put an application together and have a room full of objectors because they're concerned that this sign is gonna shine in their home. So that's really the basis of it.
So given that, did you analyze the existing residential uses along Harrison Avenue?
You're talking to the east and
correct.
to the it's kind of the east and kind of to the south.
It's about 400 feet to the east.
Yeah, and kind of the south. Yeah, we did look at that and didn't think that there'd be any impact based upon the angles of the sign faces of what would be the east face directed to westbound traffic on 10. We did look at that and concluded that there'd be zero impact to those homeowners. They'll never know that this sign is there other than if they were to ride on Route 10.
And that zero impact is based on vegetation, topography, or something else?
No, vegetation, topography, angle of the sign to Route 10, the nature of the digital signs. One of the great things about them is unlike the static signs that have these lights that shine and cause this large glare off of the sign, these signs don't do that. So taking a whole bunch of factors together, there's zero impact to those people living there.
Can you explain why these signs don't do that, why you say that?
Because okay, I'm not an expert, but the signs have louvers on, there's diodes and there's louvers on those diodes on the sign that direct the light and the advertising message, if you will, to Route 10 motorists primarily. And it's angled such that as soon as you get past a certain angle, if you drive by a digital sign, you can do it, if you know where one is, you get on a certain, it goes black once you get past a certain angle. It goes from, you can see it, to black. Regular standard outdoor advertising sign does not do that.
Do you know what that angle is? I'm sure you don't.
Now you're getting into it.
I'm just
not an
curious.
engineer.
I'm not aware of that. They just kind of go black. I've never seen that.
Well, I watch it. I see it all the time. I look for it. I can't give you the direct angle, but I think if you look at our lighting engineer's diagram, you can kind of see where once you get to that one point, after you get past that point, it's black.
So you wouldn't anticipate any complaints from the residents on Harrison Avenue about light?
No.
Or light trespass?
No.
Or glare?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we built 70 signs in New Jersey, and we have not yet have a complaint from a resident regarding any of our digital sign pieces.
Any questions from board members this week?
Where's the next nearest sign to, where's the next nearest sign to this site? Because all of these are in arguably more urban areas, and you know, I was hoping to see examples in like Morris County.
That we don't have, which is another reason, by the way, it's another factor. We're trying to do some development in Morris County because our advertisers like to have coverage. I would think our closest digital sign from here might be in Bogoda on Route 80, maybe our closest digital sign. We have one right there.
287.
That's not ours. That's not ours. But that's the closest sign we have. I think it's Bogoda on Route 80.
How about not necessarily yours? How about in general? I'm asking just because is Morris Plains going to be the first town in Morris County with the digital sign on the side of the road? Like are we going to be setting a precedent for the rest of Route 10?
I think as you go further east on Route 10, don't hold me. I think there is some digital signs on the other side of 287. But I don't think it's a matter of setting a precedent.
No, there's no precedent setting. And Mr. Sullivan can explain that to you as a board member. No, there are several in Morris County I can think of. I can think of some in Riverdale on Route 23.
Our planner has just indicated to me that he can probably answer that question better.
Yeah, there's a number.
Because he's more familiar with other companies' signs.
But even Sayreville.
What's that?
When you go out to Sayreville and we're on 35, it's 35. You get off Sayreville, it's their neighborhoods behind there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking Route 10.
Yeah.
It's not, suburbia.
I have one question. While it might show up in the rendering, is there a particular picture in the A2 that shows the type of pole that is being called for this particular sign?
I think the poles in all these are somewhat similar to what we're proposing here, other than the color will not be that blue, it will be a black color.
Similar to one in 453D?
Correct.
Well, with 453D, it appears to have like a railing, looks like that.
Yeah.
Whereas 435D does not appear to have a railing.
Yeah, some of the signs were originally static signs that have been converted to digital. Back in Little Falls, that's what we did. We did convert one of the faces there to digital, so it was a static sign at one point. So that's why you're seeing that. You won't see that here because we're not converting the sign to digital. It's going to be digital. We're not building a static sign.
In other words, just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, there won't be a railing on this or a service platform on the digital sign. That's a
Correct.
remnant of the old.
Yeah, on the outside. Inside, behind it, there will be, but not on the outside.
That's the same thing on 417D.
Yeah, again, a lot of these
That was
were,
the old one.
yeah, a lot of these signs have been around for well over 20 years, and some of them were converted. Some of them were built and should not have been with the railing, they didn't need to be, and we're not doing it now at all. Also, we didn't understand initially when the digitals first went up, what kind of service we need, and they don't need a lot of service. So, no, they won't have that exterior railing. That will not be part of this application.
Any questions from members of the public?
You still have the renderings to go through if you guys want.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, we closed the gap on that issue with the DOT and with the other sites, but we still have one more item before Mr. Gregory.
How long on the renderings do you think?
Well, if there's any questions you have, I mean.
So why don't we take a 10-minute break then, we'll come back to this, the next step of this testimony. All right, so it's 9:11 now, 9:21 back there.